Booker stretched far down the dusty road. Customers clutching takeaway containers and waiting impatiently for their turn. Inside, Risika ladled hot pepper soup into bowls, her movement quick and efficient, but her eyes held a disturbing stillness. What had Risika done to make her Booker so irresistible? 6 months earlier, the story had been very different. Risika's Booker had been one of the many in the bustling village market. Every day, she rose before dawn to pound yam, cook smoky jollof rice, prepare pepper soup, and fry plantains. She worked tirelessly, but her food sold slowly and the profits were scarce. Across the street, Mama Umbunk, her rival, seemed to have it all. Her Booker was always crowded, and the laughter could be heard above the chatter of the satisfied customer. Mama Ubong wore new wrappers weekly and sent her children to the best schools in the next town. Risika, on the other hand, struggled to afford the cheapest grains and second-hand clothes for her only daughter, Tinu. One fateful evening, as Risika cleaned up her nearly empty store, she watched Mama Ubong count thick wads of cash. She couldn't hold her frustration any longer. Mama Ubong, she called, feigning cheerfulness. Your customers never seem to get tired. What's your secret? Mama Ubong looked up, her heavily painted eyes twinkling. Busy, it's the grace of God, she replied, her tone smug. Grace of God? But I pray every day. My food is even tastier, Risika muttered, shaking her head. Mama Ubong glanced around, leaned closer, and lowered her voice. Bisi, if you want the kind of customers who can never resist your food, you will need to do something. But it's not for everyone. What kind of thing? Mama Ubong hesitated, then smirked. Come to my house tomorrow evening, and I will tell you. The next day, after Tinu had gone to bed, Risika wrapped herself in a faded wrapper and snuck out to Mama Ubong's house. The room smelled of incense, and a small clay pot burned on the table. Mama Ubong motioned for her to come and sit. Are you ready? Mama Ubong asked. Risika nodded, though the unease called in her stomach. Mama Ubong leaned forward. To keep customers coming back, you will need to add a special ingredient to your food. What kind of ingredient? Risika asked. Mama Ubong smirked. Your menstrual blood. Risika froze, her heart pounding. Blood? For food? God forbid. Mama Ubong laughed, a sharp mocking sound. Suit yourself, but the next time you are packing leftover rice, remember this moment. I no longer struggle. My customers treat me like a queen. Risika left in a daze, her mind racing. The idea was revolting, but so was her endless struggle. She spent the night staring at the ceiling, Mama Ubong's words echoing in her ears. By morning, desperation had taken hold. The first time Risika added the blood, her hands shook, but she prayed for forgiveness even as she stirred the pot of egusi soup. By noon, her buka was packed. The customers couldn't stop praising her food. Risika, your soup is amazing, one man exclaimed. Another customer licked his fingers and ordered a second plate. By evening, she has sold out completely for the first time in years. Word spread quickly, and within weeks, Risika's buka became the most popular in the village. She expanded her menu and bought a new set of utensils. Her once faded wrapper were replaced with bright, elaborate ones. Tino's school fees were paid in full and the little girl began to dream of becoming a doctor. But something felt wrong. As the weeks passed, whispers spread like Hamilton dust across the village. Risika's buka, once nearly empty, was now the talk of the community. Not just for the food, but for the strange effect it seemed to have on people. In the evenings, small groups gathered outside compounds and under the giant iroko tree at the center of the village to discuss their suspicions. Something isn't normal about that food, Chike said, leaning against a mud wall as a small crowd formed around him. Since I ate at Risika's place, food at home doesn't taste good anymore. My wife cooked soup yesterday and I couldn't enjoy it. It's true, another man, Ade added. I've gone there twice this week and I now dream about her food. It's the only food I want to eat. What's going on? The crowd murmured in agreement. An elderly woman, Mama Ngozi, raised her hand to quiet the group. Do you remember the story of the buka in Ogundele village? She said, her voice low but heavy with meaning. They said the woman used charms. She added something unclean to her food. People couldn't stop going there until the charms backfired. The group fell silent. Some exchanged nervous glances. Others shook their heads in disbelief. It could just be a rumor, one woman protested. Are you all trying to ruin Risika's name because her business is doing well? But it feels off, Chika pressed. It's not normal to crave one person's food like this. Something is in that food. The uneasy laughter that followed didn't last long. The villagers knew the stories of people who had dabbled into dark practices to gain wealth or power. For some, the signs were becoming too obvious to ignore. At home, Risika was beginning to see the darker side of her success. Tinu, once cheerful and vibrant, grew increasingly solemn. She refused to eat at the buka, claiming the food made her feel sick. Mama, your food isn't the same as before, she said one evening, pushing her plate away. Tinu, eat your food and stop talking nonsense, Risika snapped. But her daughter's words lingered. One night, as she prepared another pot of pepper soup, Risika noticed her hands trembling again. She remembered the first time she added the blood. The overwhelming shame. Now she felt nothing. On a rainy evening, a strange old woman appeared at the buka. She wore a faded gele and leaned on a carved walking stick. Her presence silenced the crowd. "Risika," the woman called, her voice carrying an unnatural weight. "Yes, ma," she replied, her heart racing. "You're enjoying your success now, aren't you?" Risika hesitated, nodding cautiously. The old woman chuckled, a sound devoid of humor. "Remember, not everything sweet is good. Some things come with a price you cannot pay." The warning sent chills down her spine. But she shook it off, dismissing the woman as a mad woman. The following week, things began to fall apart. Customers started complaining of stomach aches and nightmares. One man claimed to have seen Risika in his dream, standing over him with bloodied hands. Then came the night Tinu fell gravely ill. The girl lay on her mat, her small body racked with fever. "Mama, help me," she whispered, her voice barely audible. Risika's heart shattered. She called for the village herbalist, who examined Tinu and frowned deeply. "There's something impure in this house," he said. "You need to confess before things can get better." As the villagers' whispers grew louder, Risika knew her time was running out. She returned to Mama Ubong, begging for a way to undo what she had done. But Mama Ubong laughed bitterly. "You think juju is like a switch up you can turn off? You started it, now you must finish it." Desperate, Risika turned to the old woman who had visited her buka. The woman listened quietly as Risika poured out her confession. "Greed brought you here," the woman said, "and only humility can save you. You must give up everything you have gained. Burn your buka, confess to the village, and start again with clean hands." The next morning, Risika stood before the village, her face streaked with tears. She confessed everything: her struggles, her deal with Mama Ubong, and the blood in her food. The villagers were horrified, and many cursed her. But others saw her tears and pitied her. As part of her atonement, Risika burned her buka to the ground, the flames consuming the building and all its contents. She spent months working to rebuild her life, cooking only for her daughter and the occasional neighbor. Though the villagers eventually forgave her, Risika never returned to the bustling market. Her once famous buka became a cautionary tale, a whispered warning to those who sought shortcuts to success. Years later, Tinu would look back on her mother's story and tell her own children, there are no shortcuts to true success. What is built on deceit will always crumble. And in the village, people spoke of Risika's tale not with anger, but as a reminder of the cost of greed and the power of redemption. The end.